The Simpsons have been on for a long time, 34 years. For over 3 decades, The Simpsons have entertained audiences with its satirical take on American culture, politics, and everyday life. And in all those years, they've developed a real knack for predicting things a little too accurately. From technology to politics, and even global pandemics, the show seems to have a skill for foreseeing the future. For example, the show predicted the election of Donald Trump. Also, a 2017 episode seemed to preempt Daenerys Targaryen's big plot twist on the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones. In this video, we'll be exploring the top 12 Scary Simpsons predictions, and we'll be asking the question, are they from the future? So, sit back, relax, and get ready to be amazed as we take a deep dive into the world of The Simpsons predictions. 12. The sideburns of MLB great Don Mattingly. In 2008, there was an episode of The Simpsons called Homer at Bat. The story was about Mr. Burns, who wanted to make his softball team better by hiring real baseball players. One of those players was Don Mattingly, who used to play for the New York Yankees. Mr. Burns had a rule about how long a player's sideburns could be, and he didn't think Mattingly was following it, so he benched him. This happened to Mattingly in real life, too. Back in 1991, the owner of the Yankees, George Steinbrenner, fined him $250 and benched him for not cutting his hair the way he wanted. When the Homer at Bat episode aired a year later, people thought it was just a joke about what happened to Mattingly. But it turns out that he had recorded his lines for the show before his run-in with Steinbrenner. So, was it just a funny coincidence? Who knows? 11. Realistic holograms. The Simpsons is a TV show that sometimes shows what might happen in the future. In one episode called Holidays of the Future Past, we see what happens to Bart when he grows up. He lives in the Springfield Elementary School building, which is now a place where people who don't have a lot of money can live. Bart still has to listen to the principal, who is now his landlord. Bart likes to watch a TV show called Itchy and Scratchy, but in the future, he watches it as a hologram that looks like it's really there. In the show, the characters do things that hurt each other, and it makes a big mess on the walls. Holograms are getting better and better, and someday we might be able to touch or talk to them like they are real. That's scary to think about because we don't know what could happen if we can't tell what's real and what's not. 10. The three-eyed fish in The Simpsons 1990 episode. Back in 2008, on an episode of The Simpsons, Homer wanted to vote for Barack Obama in the big election, but something went wrong with the machine and his vote got changed by mistake. Then, 4 years later, a real-life voting machine in Pennsylvania started messing up. It kept changing people's votes for Obama to vote for the other guy, Mitt Romney. The machine had to be taken away so everyone could vote the way they wanted to. 9. Journey to Mars. One day, we're going to have to find a new home away from our planet. It's sad to say, but it's just the way things go. Humans are curious and we like to explore new places. In the 16th episode of season 27, we get a possible glimpse into this. Marge and Lisa decide to go to space to be some of the first people to live on Mars. A company called Exploration Incorporated is looking for people to go live on Mars, and Marge ends up being the perfect fit because she's good at cleaning and doing housework. Lisa gets annoyed because she wanted to be the first person on Mars. In the end, they both end up living on Mars by the year 2050. In real life, a company called SpaceX wants to send people to Mars too. They were hoping to do it by now, but they've had to change their plans a bit. They now think they can send people to Mars by the year 2029. How cool is that? We might be exploring a new planet soon. 8. Cloning blues. The Simpsons show sometimes tells stories about the future. One time, they even joked about the future president being Trump. In one episode, they show a sad future where Homer dies, but then he is quickly replaced with a new version of himself that has all of his memories. Unfortunately, these new versions of Homer don't last very long and have to be replaced often. Eventually, Homer's consciousness is put into a robot body. This is all make-believe and not something that can happen yet. We still have a long way to go before we can create a human with their memories intact. 7. Donald Trump as president. The TV show The Simpsons predicted this in an episode from the year 2000. They said that Donald Trump would become the future president of the United States. The episode was called Bart to the Future, and it showed what Bart's life would be like when he grew up. In the show, Lisa became president and talked about a money problem that was caused by President Trump. In 2017, Donald Trump became the real president of the United States. 6. Siegfried and Roy Tiger Attack. Once upon a time, The Simpsons made fun of two famous entertainers named Siegfried and Roy. In the show, the magicians were performing in a casino when a big tiger attacked them. Remember, this happened in 1993. But in real life, something scary and similar happened to Roy Horn in 2003. He was doing a live show with one of his white tigers named Montecore when the tiger attacked him. Roy was hurt very badly, but he didn't die. It was a scary moment for everyone who loved Siegfried and Roy. 5. Ebola, featured on The Simpsons. Did you know that some people believe The Simpsons predicted the Ebola outbreak of 2014? In an episode called Lisa's Sacks, Marge tells a sick Bart to read a book about Curious George with the Ebola virus. This was way back in the 1990s, before Ebola was a big problem. But years later, the virus became a huge news story. In reality, Ebola was first discovered in 1976. There were outbreaks in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1995 and Uganda in 2000, where many people lost their lives. But the 2014 outbreak was the worst one yet. Despite all the warnings and efforts to stop it, many people were affected by the deadly virus. So, did The Simpsons really predict the outbreak? Who knows? It's an interesting story nonetheless. 4. Autocorrect. In an episode of The Simpsons from 1994, two bullies named Kearney and Dolph wrote a message on a special device called a Newton. They wanted to hurt a person named Martin, but the device made a mistake and changed the words to "Eat up Martha" instead. The mistake showed how frustrating it can be when new technology makes mistakes. The show was making fun of a device called the Newton, which was not very good at recognizing handwriting. Nitin Ganatra, who used to work at Apple, said that this moment in the show inspired him to make the iPhone keyboard work better. 3. The discovery of the Higgs-boson equation. In an episode of The Simpsons in the year 2000, Homer Simpson became an inventor. In a flashback to a 1998 episode called The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, we see Homer standing in front of a blackboard covered in a super complicated equation. This equation turned out to be a real scientific prediction. In fact, according to Simon Singh's book, The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets, the equation predicted something called the mass of the Higgs-boson particle. Now, the Higgs-boson particle was something that a group of 6 physicists had predicted way back in 1964, but it wasn't until 2013 that scientists finally found proof of it. 2. The U.S. beats Sweden in curling at the Olympic Games. At the 2018 Winter Olympics, the U.S. curling team won gold, which surprised many people because Sweden was expected to win. But The Simpsons predicted this win in 2010. In the show, 2 characters beat Sweden in curling at the Vancouver Olympics. The U.S. team won their gold medal by coming from behind, just like in the TV show. This was the second time the United States has won a curling medal. 1. Economic crash look. The economy is not doing very well lately. This means that things we used to take for granted, like going to the grocery store, have changed. But many of the writers of The Simpsons show knew something we didn't. In a recent episode, Homer went to a fancy school and made a new friend. One day, while they were hanging out at a bar, Homer said that he didn't think society could survive a collapse. His new friend agreed with him and warned him that an economic disaster was coming soon. He said that supermarkets would collapse and the United States would come down with it. Homer didn't believe it. He thought America was too strong to fall. But then his friend showed him a video on his iPad that convinced Homer that the apocalypse was coming. Homer decided to join a group of people who were preparing for the collapse. These people were called preppers, and they believed that the collapse was inevitable. They were getting ready for a time when there would be no food or water or electricity. In the end, something happened in Homer's town that caused a collapse, but to everyone's surprise, the town bounced back quickly. It turned out that there was nothing to worry about after all. So while it's true that the economy is not doing well right now, we don't need to panic. Even if things get bad, there are always people who are prepared to help us get through tough times. And who knows, maybe things will bounce back faster than we think. That's all for today. Hope you've liked this video. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts on this video in the comments section.